There's a stretch of the California coast that has never been fully tamed. The mountains rise straight out of the ocean. The cliffs crumble into the sea. The land shifts on its own schedule, indifferent to anything built on top of it. In the 1930s, engineers and prison laborers carved a 2-lane highway through this terrain by hand, blasting through rock, suspending themselves off cliff faces, building bridges over gorges that dropped hundreds of feet to the surf below. It took 18 years. When it was finished, they called it an engineering marvel. The coast called it a suggestion. But people were here long before the highway. Ranchers, homesteaders, communities that could only be reached by horse or boat. They built lives in the valleys behind these cliffs, in the forests above the fog line, and places the rest of California didn't know existed. Engineers have been battling this coastline for nearly a century. The mountains slide, the cliffs crumble, the road closes. The land always wins eventually. And where the pavement ends, that's where this story begins. A small convoy deep into the mountains above the Pacific, the part of the Central Coast that never made it onto a postcard. This video is powered by Overland Trail Guides, North America's largest directory of curated overland routes, with over 100 overland routes across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. For information on this adventure or any of our other route guides, please visit overlandtrailguides.com. Why don't we get back to our adventure now? We've got 5 rigs and 4 days, and we're kicking things off on a stretch of highway along the Central California coast that sees millions of visitors every single year. But that's not why we're here. Our objective is simple. It's to go deep into the backcountry to locations where less than 1% of the people that visit this stretch of coast actually get to see and experience. And it's up there, deep into the rugged mountains. We'll be getting a bird's eye view of some of the most spectacular coastline in all of North America. Highway 1 hugs this coastline like it's holding on for dear life. And in a way, it is. This road has been sliding into the ocean since the day it was built, but for a few miles at least, it's ours to enjoy. Old Coast Road was here before the highway existed, before the bridges, before the guardrails, and before the crowds. Just a dirt track winding through the redwoods above the ocean. Some things haven't changed. Heading south, the highway rolls through the open pastures, cattle grazing, the hills impossibly green this time of year. It's pastoral and peaceful. And then, Point Sur appears suddenly on the horizon, rising straight out of the Pacific like something from another world, and the mood shifts dramatically. The lighthouse has been standing up there since 1889. Through earthquakes, through storms, through a century of this coast doing what it always does, trying to reclaim the land. Most people drive right past it without knowing it's there, but pull over at the right spot and you're looking down into a cove where no human being has stood in decades. The only way in is the ocean, and the ocean doesn't cooperate. Above it, a waterfall drops straight off the cliffs 80 feet into the Pacific, completely indifferent to whether anyone is watching or not. And if you notice the cars pulled over and the people gathered at the railing, that's one of the most photographed spots along the California coast. You can see it, you just can't get to it. We didn't linger long. There was still road to cover and mountains waiting. A few miles south, we pulled off at a beach, cracked open some lunch, and let the Pacific do the talking. It would be the last time we'd see the ocean at eye level for a while. After this, we were heading up. So we shouldn't even be here right now, but when you look at this topography and the terrain, it's so rugged, but human ingenuity engineering put in a highway through this rugged landscape, and here we are. But the highway only goes so far. About a mile south, we made our turn. The road peels off the highway and immediately means business. Switchback after switchback. The Pacific dropping away below us, the mountains opening up above. 3,000 feet of climbing in just a few miles. When the pavement gave way to dirt, that was the signal. We were in it now. And then the ridge, the ocean stretching to the horizon in every direction. Camp for the night, well earned. From up here, the Central Coast reveals itself in a way that's impossible to appreciate from the highway below. The ridge drops thousands of feet into the crashing waves, the Pacific stretching west to the horizon, the interior mountains folding into one another to the east. It's the kind of place that makes you realize how much of California exists beyond the roads and highways that cross it. Most people never go looking for places like this. But for some of us, the pull toward the unknown is just too strong to ignore. There's something about a fire at the end of a long day in the mountains that strips everything back. No signal, no noise, just the wind off the Pacific and a group of friends who chose to be exactly here. Day 1 was done. The coastal ranges of the Central Coast had 2 more days to show us what they were made of. So a few decades after the 49ers found gold in the Sierra Nevada, gold was found in these mountains right behind me, not too far away. Now, it wasn't as big as the gold rush back then, but some of the people that came up here and they tried to do the same thing, scratching out a living, and when the gold was gone, a few of them still stayed. Gold was first discovered in these mountains in the 1850s. Chinese miners systematically working the stream beds of the Santa Lucia Range, washing gravel from the coastal ravines. Enough gold dust to keep people interested, but not enough to start a gold rush. The Los Burros mining district was formally organized in 1875. A legal framework to manage the growing number of claims being filled in the mountains above the Pacific. But the find that changed everything came 12 years later. On March 24, 1887, a prospector named Billy Cruikshank discovered a rich vein of low gold at the head of Alder Creek. He called it the last chance mine. Within a few years, a town called Manchester had sprung up 4 miles inland from the coast, complete with hotels, a post office, and 5 saloons. It burned to the ground in 1892. The gold veins kept running dry without warning. The mountains made everything impossibly expensive. Total output across the entire district amounted to roughly $150,000 at the time, or about $2.8 million in today's dollars, modest by Sierra standards. Some of those original homestead claims are still out here today. Families holding on to the land their ancestors staked over a century ago. No neighbors, no services, no easy way in or out. Just the ridge, the mountains, and one of the most dramatic stretches of coastline in North America right out their front door. We had 30 miles of ridge road ahead of us. 30 miles of road that almost nobody drives, through mountains that drop straight to the Pacific on one side and fold into the California interior on the other. So for us, this is the end of the road. If you keep going that way a couple of miles, you will hit a gate, get pretty close to the county line. Absolutely beautiful up here. Nobody out this way. We're really far out there. You can just get a feeling of how remote we are here in this section of the coast ranges along the Central Coast. What goes out must come back. Lucky for us, we'd secured camp earlier in the day, a small clearing tucked into the ridge above the Los Burros mining district. And if you're gonna retrace 30 miles of rugged dirt road, there are far worse ways to do it than with the Pacific on one side and the Santa Lucias on the other. We'd seen this road once already, but it didn't get any less spectacular the second time. There's something that happens after a full day on a trail in a place like this. The noise falls away, not just the literal noise, but the other kind. The obligations, the inbox, the endless sense that you should be somewhere else, doing something else. Up here, there's nowhere else to be. This ridge, this light, these people, and the Pacific stretching to the horizon. That's the whole list. I think that's why more and more people are finding their way to places like this. Not to escape their lives, but to remember what living actually feels like. Day 3, we packed up camp, departed the ridge, and pointed east, trading the coast for the interior, the Pacific for ancient oak valleys. Our last day on the trail had one more story to tell. But before we turned our backs on the coast entirely, we stopped one last time. The wildflowers were out, the Pacific was doing what it always does, and nobody was in a hurry to get back in their rigs. El Camino Real, the royal road connecting all 21 California missions, cut inland here rather than following the coast or the Salinas Valley. The reason was simple. The Padres needed two things above everything else: a dependable water source and access to large indigenous populations to convert. The San Antonio River Valley gave them both. The Salinan, Yokut, and Esalen people had called this valley home for centuries. Father Sayre arrived in 1771, hung a bronze bell from an oak tree, and declared this the place. He called it the Valley of the Oaks. The mission they built here is the only one in California whose surroundings remain essentially unchanged from the day it was founded. keep coming back to this doorway, and I think about the thousands of people who pass through it, many against their own will. The San Antonio Valley is home to one of the finest stands of valley oak in California, the largest oak tree in North America. Some of these trees are pushing 600 years old, their canopy spreading 100 feet in every direction. The Salinan people lived among these oaks for thousands of years before the Spanish arrived, before the mission, before El Camino Real, long before any of us. Camping here, underneath these ancient trees, in the shadow of the Santa Lucias, it's impossible not to feel small and inconsequential. The Esalen and Salinan people knew every ridge, every valley, every creek along this stretch of Central Coast for thousands of years before anyone else arrived. We spent 4 days out here and barely scratched the surface. Imagine what was lost when they were torn from it. Till next time, stay wild and wander far. Godspeed.